So now let's go back to BibleGateway.com, a very useful internet resource for researching scriptures. And I want to take you to the very beginning of the Bible, to Genesis chapter 1, where God first talked about making men on the earth. And please notice what God says. He says, "Let us make man in our image." And so he also says, "after our likeness." And so please consider that God's not saying that he's going to make man exactly like him or exactly like whoever he was speaking to at the time, because notice he did say, "let us." And so God alone was not involved in the creation of man. He's talking to someone here, perhaps multiple other divine creatures. Let us make man in our image. He's not saying, "I will make man by myself in my image." He's talking to other creatures after our likeness. Okay, so now he is making man in our image, or the other divine creatures' images, and man has a head, a torso, legs, 2 legs, and 2 arms. Now please try and consider now how this scripture in Genesis can relate to the one we discussed in Ezekiel, where Satan is being described as being made out of drums and cylinders and pipes. So what we need to do to get close to what our image is then is to create a man out of drums and pipes and cylinders. So what we need to do then is create an image of a man in drums and pipes and cylinders, and that might bring us closer to the likeness of the divine creatures. And so it's likely that those divine creatures also had heads and torsos, arms and legs that were similar to a man's image. So in order now to go back to try and understand what the divine image might look like, then we need to create a man out of drums and pipes and cylinders. And so we're reversing back to what God originally said: "Let us make man in our image." And it's likely that Satan was included among the group of divine creatures that he was talking to when he said this sentence. Now I'd like to take you to another scripture in the Bible, in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 12, which many academics feel describe Satan. And this is what it says in Isaiah chapter 14 verse 12. "How art thou fallen from heaven?" And so now we have another reference to Satan being cast out of heaven. And notice that he's called O Lucifer. So in some Bible translations it says O Shining One. And it's interesting that the word Lucifer, I believe, is a Latin word that means burning or shining. And in the English language, in older English, people used to call matches Lucifers. And so this sort of implies that Satan is a fiery, burning, bright, shining creature. And once again we have the same kind of implication or relationship to fire that we had found in Ezekiel, where it talked about Satan walking upon the stones of fire. It's something to keep in mind and think about when considering what Satan might look like. Notice also in the scripture in Isaiah that it says, "How art thou cut down to the ground?" And so in Isaiah it's making another reference similar to the one in Ezekiel, that Satan will be cast down to the earth, which parallels that scripture in Revelation. Let's go to that scripture in Revelation chapter 12, and we'll notice that in Revelation chapter 12 that it describes a war, a great war in heaven, where Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought with his angels. And so this is describing an enormous battle which starts in heaven, and the war is amongst the most powerful creatures in the universe. And so if we continue, it says that the dragon, or Satan, did not prevail, and there was no more a place for Satan in heaven. It says the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And so this continues the theme in other Old Testament scriptures, that Satan would be cast down to the earth, or cast onto the ground. And so if there's a battle which starts in heaven, it ends on the earth. So this implies that this war, which started in heaven and concluded on the earth, might be, or might have been, visible to this planet's inhabitants. Certainly if an entire army of angels is fighting in the heavens, and that fight or battle or war concludes on the earth, then could there actually be manifestations of that battle or war amongst the most powerful creatures in the universe when it actually came and approached the earth? Another thing to consider is that if Satan is cast out into the earth and there is no longer a place anymore in heaven for him, that means he can't go back. Satan cannot return to heaven. He is confined to the earth. And so if this is not a future event and has already occurred, what I'm going to suggest is that Satan is on the earth now, and also that if people were to see him, they would see a divine creature that is in a similar image to men. However, he will be created with tabrets, cylinders, drums, and pipes. And so we could expect that he has a body, a torso with arms and legs in similar positions to the way a man's image is. We could also expect that Satan is very bright, as identified in those Old Testament scriptures, and that he might be burning with fire. And so we could expect that Satan is a very shiny, bright, fiery, divine being who is in the image of man and yet is made out of pipes and cylinders. So with that in mind, let's proceed to build a divine image using those shapes, and do it so that it reflects the image of a real man.